Alright, what's up you guys? Welcome to another action figure review, as today I'm going to take you back to 1995 as we look at the G.I. Joe Extreme figures released by Kenner. Now, G.I. Joe Extreme is a cartoon animated series, and before I begin this review or overview of these figures, I will have an updated review with the villains included, as this is basically an overview of the figures. And on top of that, this review was basically recorded before I rewatched the G.I. Joe Extreme animated series, which you can see on my SharkToons YouTube channel. So usually I like to go over the character storylines and story arcs within each individual character review, but for this particular one, we're just going to be looking at the designs and the overall aesthetics of these figures, just because I'm not too familiar with the backgrounds of each individual character, as again, it implies and explores more into the animated series realm, which again, I haven't seen in a long time, and I have to brush up on my memory on that one. But for the time being, let's go ahead and take a look at each one of these figures individually and just see how great they really are, because G.I. Joe Extreme is also one of those brands where, you know, if you're familiar with the G.I. Joe 3-inch figures, then these are basically in their own respective realm of 5-inch figures and kind of has that really cool storytelling. So let's go ahead and take a look at these figures and see how great they really are. Alright, so up first we're going to be taking a look at the leader and what I like to call the Major Chip Hazard from Small Soldiers version of G.I. Joe, which is Lieutenant Stone. Now this figure is a really cool looking figure just because I love everything about it, and it has one of those aesthetics where it really defines like a futuristic and modern military-esque soldier, where he has like the blonde hair with the slight little buzz cut, the dog tags, the olive green outfit with the beige straps with the knives and the holsters, and these futuristic looking weapons, and then heavy duty boots, and just like these cool little wrist bandages all over, or half gloves that are on the hands and forearms. And I love the facial expression of this figure. He just really means business, and it's just really one of the first figures I ever owned as a kid from G.I. Joe Extreme, just because I was really big into the small soldiers aesthetic of collecting, and overall the concept of the beiges with the greens and then the blue under t-shirt really makes the figure pop a lot more, and I just love the design of this guy. It just screams out like he's a badass leader. And even though I believe Cobra is not part of this G.I. Joe series, as the enemies are basically called SKAR. Again, we'll dive into the villains in another video, but for now, again, he just has that whole very underrated aesthetic of like nice musculature, nice details, nice design with the grenades and then the pouches, the belt straps and buckles, and the again, just the minor little details and sculptings that really makes like a soldier look so badass. And I love the boots and the designs of everything about it. Just screams out like he can even do like solo missions. And again, I loved calling him like the Major Chip Hazard from Small Soldiers within this. And it's like really cool, because even looking at the back of the figure, you can see all the backpack and stripes and minor sculptings within the belts and stuff, which really again makes the figure pop a lot more. And yeah, it's really nicely done for the old 95 versions, and these retro toys just really help the nostalgia build the imagination as a kid. So yeah, the facial expression is really cool. I wish I can dive more into the character development of these figures, but again, this is recorded before I rewatched the animated series for the review, so I have to brush up my knowledge on these guys. But for the time being, I'm just happy to even have these figures in hand and just talk about it. So maybe Hasbro will do a G.I. Joe classified versions of these figures, but for now, I mean, I don't know, we'll see. And when it comes to his accessories, he does come with this giant ass missiles that you can basically shoot them, and then he holds them like in one hand, and then he kind of like launches them out like a missile launcher kind of thing. I'm not sure if this will work. Hopefully, there you go. Just kind of shoot them out like that, but you pretty much get the idea. And then it does come with additional spare missiles, because they probably knew that you were going to lose them. So yeah, I find that pretty funny, but overall it's really a heavy duty missile launcher type thing, so can't go wrong with these figures or these kinds of weapons. So enjoy it for what it is, but overall the figure itself is really badass. So that is Lieutenant Stone. Alright, and up next we have Sergeant Savage, who is another character I like to induct into my small soldiers as Butch Meathook. But this figure is really badass looking as well. I love the camo designs, the silver grenades with the black straps, and the little minor straps of the holsters and stuff, and these really hefty boots, which really adds and complements to the style of the figure with a fisted hand with some nice details and musculature, and a very rigid facial expression with a cool looking sculpted hat, the hard hat, which adds that whole military and soldier aesthetic to these figures. And I love how his left arm has like a strap for grenades, and he just comes with this crazy ass gun with missiles, I believe, and these hard ass bullets and stuff, which is pretty cool. And when it comes to his accessories and weapons, he does come with this missile and this catapult, which I have not used one bit, but it has the original 90s little probably ripped rubber band, so I don't want to mess with that one bit. But overall, it does come with these two interesting looking accessories and gimmicks and stuff. But for the time being, for the standard articulation, there's really not much to say other than the greens really do pop out and contrast well against the blacks, which are very dark, and the back of the figure, nicely black stripes with the black camo over the green. And yeah, the silvers really do pop out and complement the figure itself, and yeah, pretty interesting looking weapon there as well. And yeah, pretty cool figure, but not much else to say other than he seems like a very intense and badass figure. So that is Sergeant Savage. Alright, so the next figure we're going to take a look at here is Freight, and this figure has like a mix of heavy duty and roadblock from the original G.I. Joe, and this figure doesn't look too bad. I mean, it has a wide range of different color schemes, where whether it's the grays, the blues, the greens, the golds, the blacks, everything about it just looks pretty dang nice. I mean, the red bandana on top also gives it that menacing look, and the armor and aesthetic of it just seems, like a badass, guy that you don't want to mess with. Now, the only thing that I'm not a fan of with this figure, and this is pretty standard for old 90s action figures, is that, or even 80s for that matter, these have minimal articulation. But the thing is that I don't like it when figures have these really weird sculpts, and the ones where you really cannot just move anything and they have that one set position. So with all the other figures standing straight, this one I consider is the weakest, just because he has his knees bent and he has like this weird stance. It just gives him like that shortness to the figure, when I feel like he should be probably the tallest amongst all the other G.I. Joe Extreme figures. But he does come with this really cool bladed weapon / shield that's a gauntlet on his forearm. He also comes with this blade and dagger. They all have some really cool sculpting there, but there's no coloring in anything. It's just like a solid gray color, which is pretty unfortunate. So I think it could have been a little better, but that's okay. The pouches, all that, nicely done. Some good sculpting there by the knee pads, and then the straps around the legs, and then the boots all came out pretty good. Even the back there, you can see that he does have a gimmick, which we'll see in a few seconds. And yeah, he does have more of the continuation of the pouches and straps and stuff around there, with more accessories on the top there. We're giving him like that armor piece. So when you press this button right here, which is part of his gimmick, it basically just moves his right arm up and down, so you can kind of slice and dice people in half. So yeah, it's pretty cool for what it is. He also comes with a bonus weapon, which is, I have no clue what this thing even is. It's very bizarre looking, but yeah, it's also the same standard color gray. So I just incorporated the two main cool looking weapons for him, and other than that, it's pretty badass. So, and I forgot to talk about his head sculpt, because that just looks really, really cool. I love the grinning teeth, the eyebrows, the facial expression. Looks like he's ready to go into war. The whole headband stuff, the flying in the wind, yeah, all that came out really cool. And then you can see a lot of the veins popping out from the neck. Look at that, some good sculpting there. Yeah, good job. You can see there's also some rips on his shirt, which I didn't even notice until now. So there's really minor detailing, which is nice attention to giving it more bang for your buck. And it does say G.I. Joe tattoo right there on his right arm. So that is Freight. Up next, we're going to be taking a look at the skinniest character amongst the G.I. Joe roster. Now, this is something really relatable to me because I am also a very skinny person myself. So when I saw this figure, it's like looking at myself in the mirror, and I was just pretty happy to see this kind of weight on this figure, because a lot of times you just see like a diesel and muscular character, and his name is Harpoon, and he comes with water cannons, so we can say he's basically the water type character. And I like the color scheme of this one with the light blues and dark blues. All the silvers came out really well, and then he has like, I guess, some dog tags or other things sticking out from the inner side of the shirt. And again, the reds do complement the silvers on the inside. Some very good sculpting there. Some nice line work within these shoulder pads. The light blues really do make the figure pop against the darker blues, and the aesthetic of this is nice. And then we got some yellows there on the side, and then the boots are pretty decent, and then it's all just a straightforward blue pant with some more yellows there on the, cross hatching. He does have a silver, kind of like a mechanical arm gauntlet, which is looking pretty badass. And then on the back he has more of these, I guess you can say it's part of his hydro mechanism, and I really do like the silvers used on this. It's not like very nasty grays that they usually do. And yeah, the weapon itself is really cool. So it's kind of like those old water guns that we used to play with in like the 80s and 90s. So yeah, it's really awesome. The face sculpt has that classic and traditional 90s hairstyle where it's parted from the sides. So that's, it's like that wavy hair. We all know what kind of hairstyle that used to be. He's got a lot of muscle to him despite being the slimmest character amongst them all. And you can just see from his arms just how diesel he is, in the sense of just a lot of his muscles just kind of popping out. Probably my favorite character and most relatable one for me. And yeah, I just like how his hair just kind of waves in through the back with some cuttings there on the back of the haircut. So gives you more of a modern aesthetic to it. And yeah, and some other red pouches on the side. He does come with an additional weapon, which is this giant ass other, I guess, water cannon. So it's basically like a double weapon that he holds, and it does get a bit top heavy, and just by looking at it you can just see how freaking huge and badass it looks. So my only thing is he's probably just spraying people with water during the war with SKAR, but for a skinny dude, I mean, he's really packing some heat there. So yeah, that's just a really cool looking figure. So that is Harpoon. So up next we have a character named Metalhead, and it's not the classic Metalhead that we all know within the G.I. Joe line, as this one is obviously drastically different. But this one is a very interesting and unique character because he's just looks like a surfer boy with a peace necklace there. He has the classic traditional 80s and 90s hair, pretty boy aesthetic, and the face sculpt just looks like he's a very dashing dude. So that's pretty funny. He has a black vest over a green, I believe, shirt that's probably underneath, some black straps around the wrists, and the jeans are ripped with a few minor brown patches, and the black boots, which are nice and sturdy. The back of the figure says G.I. Joe on it, and yeah, it's one of the more basic looking figures. It's like, again, the pretty boy, peace, hippie, I don't know how you want to decipher it, but the concept of it just looks really cool because, again, he has like the rips and stuff. And one of the things that I don't really like is that he comes with this giant missile launcher, which to me is the weirdest looking thing. I mean, yeah, for the 90s the gimmicks are all cool, and it would have been better if these black pieces weren't attached to it because they're screwed on. But the design of it is pretty hefty, and you can just attach the missiles to it, which puts in there like that, and then you just have to hit the bottom black piece and then the missile flies out and it's all black, so it blends in pretty properly. So the thing that I find very weird about this figure is that it's hard for him to kind of hold it really straight out, so a lot of times it's going to be blending in like that. So, and depending on which arm you put it, he's just holding it in a very weird direction. So now just having him briefly hold it, imagine him going into war with this big ass gimmick. So Yeah, it's just out of control, and I don't know, I don't really like it. Overall, I just think it's a really cool looking figure in terms of just having his blonde luscious locks waving in the air. So yeah, it's just a very simplistic design, but a nice addition to the G.I. Joe team. So that is Metalhead. Up next, we have a character named Ballistic, and this one again has a nice multicolored uniform, as we have some maroons, yellows, reds, beiges, blacks, and silvers all going throughout the body. So again, very cool sculpting. It says G.I. Joe there on his chest, and yeah, it's one of those other cool looking figures. I love the design of it. I just love how he's just equipped with so much accessories. And so now, briefly equipping him with the gun that I gave Lieutenant Stone, you can now see the proper gimmick, as when you push both of his legs together, it basically gives the gimmick of bam. His head also turns to the side, and you can kind of give him like a shooting range, kind of like, yeah, like heads up buddy, I'm gonna shoot you. So I do like his facial expression with the mutton chops, sideburns, and then the faded or the half cut top there as well. So the ponytail came out pretty good, and the facial expression is probably one of the more cooler ones, just because it's like a half raisin eyebrow and a very kind of cockier expression, like he knows what he's doing. So yeah, it's a pretty decent design or face sculpt for this figure. Cool little sweater sculpting, and then some other cross hatching there on the bottom. The belts, all that looking really cool. I got some ammos there and some blues, and then the pouches and the beige and the boots, pretty good. So yeah, it's a really cool looking figure. Not much else to say other than I like how he probably the only figure that comes with an actual backpack. So I wished all the other ones did, to kind of give it more of that G.I. Joe feel, but it's okay. So that is Ballistic. And last but not least, it would not be complete without having an actual Snake Eyes-esque version ninja within the G.I. Joe team, as here we have a character named Black Dragon. This figure is again a ninja, and you can see by the double wielded swords, and it's gold, it is basically ninja. And the head sculpt is pretty decent, just all standard black with some blonde hair peeping through the top, some eyes, and a silver triangle there by the mouthpiece, which is fine for what it is. Does have a few grenades there as well, and I believe a gun that's in the holster, which you cannot take out because he is holding the two swords, and then some reds contrasting against the whites and silvers. Mostly an all black outfit. He does have some red pouches there on the side, so I'm not sure what he equips with himself in there, but it looks good. And then on here we can just see some more pouches and stuff with some straps. Twist the body a little towards the right in order for him to stand a bit straight. Now the cool thing is that he does have a gimmick where you can see on the back that there's like this mechanical gear that you kind of have to rotate. So when you do that, he basically just swings the swords left and right. So yeah, it gives you that sword battling action, which is pretty cool. He does come with two additional weapons, one with this throwing star-esque I don't know what you want to call it, dragon thing, and it pegs into one of his hands if you don't want him to hold the sword, but the golds do look pretty cool. And then he comes with his nunchucks, which is a nice addition to detail because a lot of times ninjas don't get the nunchucks, so it's very easy for the rope to break as well, so I'm glad mine's at least in good condition. The design of him again is pretty decent. I just wish that he stood a bit better, but it is what it is, and yeah, you can never go wrong with having ninjas in your collection. So really cool name, and hopefully we'll get into the villains at another video. So that is Black Dragon. Alright you guys, so that's basically my G.I. Joe Extreme collection, as we have Freight, Metalhead, Ballistic, Lieutenant Stone, Sergeant Savage, Harpoon, and Black Dragon. Now, if you're familiar with the actual animated series, you will know that there are other characters within that cartoon, and two characters were actually in prototype form, which you can see in the back of the packaging, which is a female character and another character part of the G.I. Joe roster, but unfortunately those two characters were never made and they did not get created and added into the G.I. Joe Extreme roster. But you can see that those two figures will probably be additions to the next wave after these figures, and it's very unfortunate because a female would have really benefited this group of characters, as well as that big brute that they showcase in the back of the packaging. So other than that, I will have an updated video as we go over the villains as well, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys all for watching. Be sure to give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next episode.